Greetings one and all, great to have you with me, as always contemplating the issues of the day as the world and the powers that be continue to change and adapt. It's vital that we question everything, stay engaged and keep talking to one another. Out of small acorns, mighty oaks grow and all of that. Part of that process is me and the team reading all the comments that are sent in, so please keep them coming. They help drive the channel, they give us a sense of the way the wind is blowing out there. Also, do subscribe to the channel and check out my website for more information. Before we get started, I want to let you know that you can help support the channel in a very practical sense by going to patreon.com and finding me there. The link's in the details below. It's a great site. You get, as a quid pro quo, early access to all my content, and there's an exclusive weekly question and answer session for subscribers and subscribers alone. The whole thing costs about the price of a cup of coffee every month, and you're in touch automatically with a great community of fellow freethinkers. Okay, now it's time for the monologue. New year, new nonsense. Honestly, I've been reading around online mostly, as is my wont, which enables me to ask the question, anyone for bubonic plague? You know, the one that wiped out millions of people in centuries gone by, also known as the Black Death. I ask because news reaches me that a vaccine against same, being the Black Death, the bubonic plague, the latest end of the world, whatever, is presently being developed by the same busy bees that inflicted upon us the AstraZeneca COVID-19 jab. Allow me to quote at some length from an article in an online publication called Slay News. COVID-vax scientists scrambled to develop bubonic plague vaccine as next pandemic fears grow. Quote, Oxford team reports hopeful results in trials as military experts say UK should stock supplies of Black Death inoculation. Let's read on. Honestly, I don't know what to make of these things, but let's read on just for the fun of it. The team of scientists behind the AstraZeneca COVID injection are scrambling to develop a new vaccine to supposedly tackle the bubonic plague. Scrambling. That's a very specific choice of word, isn't it? Scrambling, which would presumably imply desperate hell for leather speed, casting aside all restrictions and all hesitation in the face of imminent threat. But I digress. Bubonic plague is an infection spread mostly to humans by infected fleas that travel on rodents. Called the Black Death, it killed millions of Europeans during the Middle Ages. Anyone smell a rat yet? And I don't mean the rats that carry the fleas that carry the plague. Quote again, while many would assume the Black Death was confined to the history books, the Oxford University scientists behind the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine are now rushing to prepare for a bubonic plague pandemic. Scientists have called for the UK to add a Black Death jab to its stockpile as the risk of a superbug strain rises. And now the Oxford team says a trial of its vaccine on 40 healthy adults, which started in 2021, has yielded results which show it's safe and able to produce an immune response in people. Government military scientists recently called for a vaccine to be approved and manufactured in bulk quantities because plague still exists in pockets of the world and has potential for pandemic spread. Scientists at Porton Down's Defence Science and Technology Lab wrote in a paper in the journal NPJ Vaccines that vaccines need to be expedited to prevent future disastrous plague outbreaks. Claims of superbug strains emerging in distant corners of the world have reignited calls for mass global vaccination efforts. Among the reasons being touted to justify a mass vaccination campaign are climate change and the spectre of bioterrorism. Almost feels like a hoax, doesn't it? Okay, far be it from me to minimise the potential of a disease like that we have learned to call the bubonic plague. It has been a fellow traveller of humankind for thousands of years at least. Call it what you will, my own favourite happens to be the Great Mortality, as they named it in centuries past. But it's a bacterial infection that travels in the fleas that prefer black rats. Black rats being the rats, unlike their relatives, the brown rats, that enjoy the company of us, which is to say the company of humans. Archaeologists I know this for a fact, have found the bacterium in question, which is Yersinia pestis, in the DNA of skeletons of Eastern European people who died in the early centuries of the 3rd millennium BC. When those nomads moved into the West with their herds of cattle, they likely brought with them a form of the Black Death. Great changes to populations back then. An ancient winnowing that reached as far as the British Isles at that time may indicate how long our species has known the disease in one form or another. It's still with us, infecting a few people every year, believe it or not, throughout the Americas, in Africa, and in Asia. It's normally effectively treated with antibiotics, and in the present era, infection from person to person with bubonic plague is rare in the extreme. But in the context of recent years, is the news of a vaccine, a jab to hold at bay a pandemic, not ringing any bells for anyone? Furthermore, is anyone else getting to the point where news of impending doom, nuclear war, someone somewhere igniting the cow fart that finally sets the world ablaze, a pandemic? Is anyone else at the point where such news brings on symptoms not unlike those of narcolepsy, as in a sudden nodding off? I'm prepared to bet, just as a for instance, that the jab they finally offer up to billions of arms will be built on the same mRNA platform that caused and continues to cause so much harm to so many people. Why won't they just leave us alone? I'm exhausted with it. I'm exhausted by it. The jumping like flea to rat from one crisis to the next. But all joking aside, this behaviour on the part of the authorities is literally a disaster waiting to happen, one way or another. Because whatever it is the authorities offer next, or indeed mandate, up to and including a jab promising eternal life and a physique like Brad Pitt's in Fight Club, I'm not buying it. Count me out. So after all the crying wolf in recent years about COVID, about climate crisis, about poxy monkeys, after all of it, if something real comes along, I'll just have to face it, clad only in the clothes I'm standing up in, because I wouldn't trust the next government-sponsored solution as far as I could throw it. And let's properly widen our view, the better, after all, to see the bigger picture. Beyond the reach of whatever administration we call whichever government we happen to be lumbered with at any given moment, in the shadows where the decisions that matter are actually made by the one world government types, we plainly see by now the determination to keep billions of people forever on their toes, forever on edge. War, invasion by aliens, zombie disease, a world on fire on account of cows and gas boilers. All of these, and more besides, are just distractions. If we're supposed imminently to fear a pandemic of the Black Death, experience makes it clear we must ignore that phantom entirely and look around instead for whatever it is the cabal is pulling with a view to seizing more money and more control. I do fear infected fleas, and I'm not especially partial to rats anywhere near my home or my children. But nowadays, the fleas stand behind podiums and try and get me to inject my kids with God knows what, while the rats gather in Davos to plot my doom. Fortunately, the lies and propaganda overdose I was inflicted with after 2020 has given me immunity, natural immunity. And natural immunity, as we know, lasts a lifetime.